Hello everyone, it's Jayashri from Excellence PU College, Karkala, Sanur. Let us start the biology bridge course with the chapter Cell, the unit of life. Cell, the unit of life. As you all know, the cell you are studying from your 8th standard. In the 8th standard, you have discussed about the cell functions, and in the 9th, the unit of life. And here we are providing you the bridge course which links you from high school to the PU college. Here in this syllabus, we are going to discuss and the chapter cell is in your syllabus. The cell, the unit of life. Let us start with the content. Let us start with the content. The introduction to the cell. Introduction. Here we are going to discuss the definition, structural and functional unit of life. Structural and functional unit. Let us know about the how it is structural and functional unit of life by the levels of organization. So as you all know, cell combined together or group of cell performing the similar function and same in origin construct the tissues. Cell combined together, they form the tissues. Tissues combined together or group of tissues form organ. Group of organ form organ system. Organ system composes the organisms. Okay, so coming to the again definition, structural and functional unit of life. Unit of life. How? Structural refers to the group of cell combined together, they form the tissues. Tissues combined together form the organ. Organ system form the organisms. Organism means the structure of the organism is started by the cell. Hence, we call it as a structural. And how functional? About the functional, the cell tissues form organ. Organ refers to the respiratory organ, means lungs, the digestive system. Digestive system involves from the mouth to the anus, all the organs combined here. So organ does this particular function. Organ does the particular function. So ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಇದನ್ನ functional unit ಕೂಡ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. Structural and functional unit of life. Hope you understood the definition of the cell. What it is? The structural and functional unit of life. Okay, next is we have discussed about the definition now. Next is the discoveries of the cell. Discoveries. Okay, the first cell is discovered by Robert Hooke. Next, the first cell andre ನಾವು ರಾಬರ್ಟ್ ಹೂಕ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು because it is a dead cell. Dead cell. The first cell is dead cell discovered by the Robert Hooke. The living cell discovered by first living cell is discovered by Antony van Leeuwenhoek. Leeuwenhoek, the first living cell. Nucleus is discovered by nucleus discovered by Robert Brown. Robert Brown. Protoplasm is discovered by Purkinje. Okay, this is about the discoveries of the cell. Another one, the plasma membrane, discovered by Singer and Nicholson. Okay, this is about the discoveries of the cell. So next, the cell theory. About cell theory, the scientists called as Sheldon and Swan. Sheldon and Swan given the cell theory. Sheldon is a botanist. Given the statement of the cell theory that all plants made up of cell. Then Swan is a geologist. He given a statement of the cell theory that all animals made up of cells. So these two are the scientists given statement about the cell that we call as a cell theory. Later, the scientist called Rudolf Virchow modified this cell theory as in the two statement. First one is modified cell theory in the two statement. First one is all living organisms composed of cells. And second statement, which was not explained by the Sheldon and Swan, that is all cells produced from pre-existing cells. So this was the cell theory where Sheldon and Swan given the statement as all animals are composed of cells and Sheldon given all plants are made up of cells. The scientist called Rudolf Virchow modified the cell theory that all living organisms are composed of cells and all cells are produced from its pre-existing cell. It was about the cell theory. So next we start with the cell structure, cell number, cell shape and cell size. So in the cell structure, we are going to discuss about the cell number, cell shape and cell size. So cell number in the organisms may be vary. So if the cell is single cell, the organism made up of single cell called as unicellular. Many cells called as multicellular. Okay, about the cell shape. Cell shape may be vary. Example, the shape of the RBCs, red blood corpuscles, are biconcave in shape, biconcave in shape, and muscle cells are elongated. Muscle cells are elongated or spindle shaped, and ovum or egg is oval in shape, and some of the epithelial cells are columnar in shape. Okay, so cell shape may be vary. Then about the size of the cell. The smallest living cell is mycoplasma, and cell longest cell is nerve cell or neuron. Then largest cell is egg of ostrich egg. The smallest cell in human is sperm cell. Okay, this is all about the structure of the cell, where we have discussed the number of the cell. If the organism is made up of single cell, we call them as a unicellular organisms. Many cells, multicellular organisms. In case of unicellular organisms, a single cell will define whole functions and physiological functions of the organisms. And about the number, we have discussed about the shape of the cell. Here RBCs are biconcave in shape, muscle cells are spindle shaped, the ovum or egg cell is oval in shape, some of epithelial cells are columnar in shape. And about the size, the smallest living cell is mycoplasma, longest cell is neuron, largest cell is ostrich egg, and smallest cell in human is sperm. Hope you understood till this. Then about the structure, types of the cell, prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell. Okay, so here with the difference we will study here. Prokaryotic means here the membrane bound cell organelles are absent. Membrane bound cell organelles are absent. Here in case of eukaryotic, the membrane bound cell organelles are present. Membrane bound cell organelles are present. Then here nuclear membrane is absent. Nuclear membrane is absent. Here in this case, we call this type of nucleus is incipient nucleus. Incipient nucleus. Okay. So, but in case of eukaryotic cell, the nuclear membrane is present. Example for the prokaryotic cell is bacteria, and example for eukaryotic cell is plants and animals. Hope you understood this thing. Difference between the prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell. Okay, then we'll move to the next. The structure means we will understand the structure of the cell with the diagram. So first we start with the outer membrane of the cell. Animal cell, we call it as a plasma membrane or cell membrane. Plasma or cell membrane, which is outermost layer in case of animal cell, inside which you will find the cytoplasm, which provides the media for the cellular activities. Okay, the brain of the cell we call as nucleus. Brain of the cell we call as a nucleus, inside which you will find the nucleolus, and nucleoplasm and some chromatin material in the nucleoplasm. So next is this is nuclear membrane extensions. Nuclear membrane extensions look like this. Here we call these as some tubular structures, scattered in the cytoplasm. Called as endoplasmic reticulum. One of the membrane bound cell organelle. Next to this is the Golgi apparatus. Near to the endoplasmic reticulum. So this is a nucleus. Next to that is tubular structures scattered in the cytoplasm. Next to that is, this is Golgi apparatus. We can define this as the densely strained sac-like structure called as Golgi apparatus near the nucleus. Okay. Next is, if it is an animal cell, the centrioles are present, and the membrane bound structures are the mitochondria, membrane bound structures, then lysosomes are there, and in case of animals the vacuoles are scattered, and this is mitochondria. And another one, on the endoplasmic reticulum, if you found the tiny structures called as ribosomes. If the ribosomes present on endoplasmic reticulum, this endoplasmic reticulum is called as rough endoplasmic reticulum. If the ribosomes are absent on the endoplasmic reticulum, is called as smooth endoplasmic reticulum. If the ribosomes are absent. Hope you understood about the cell structure. This is a plasma membrane, outermost layer in case of animal cell, inside which you will find the fluid thing called as cytoplasm. The brain of the cell is called as nucleus. Is double membrane structure, and next is the endoplasmic reticulum, the tiny tubular structures scattered within the cytoplasm, endoplasmic reticulum. If the ribosome present on the endoplasmic reticulum is called as rough endoplasmic reticulum. If ribosomes absent is called as smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Next to this is the densely stained structures found near the nucleus, which are made up of the tubular sac-like structures called as cisternae. These individual structures are called as cisternae, called as Golgi apparatus, and these are lysosomes. Lysosomes, no worries, I will explain about each and every structure, every part of the cell. Okay. So next is the powerhouse of the cell is called as mitochondria. Powerhouse of the cell is called as mitochondria, and some centrioles. Centrioles are present. This is about the cell structure. Okay then. So one by one we will start. The first part of the cell is plasma membrane. First part of the cell, outermost layer in case of animal cell is plasma membrane. It is a bilayer membrane, bilayered. Okay, it is also called as fluid mosaic model of plasma membrane. Okay, made up of lipid and protein, made up of lipid and protein. And is very important thing about the plasma membrane is it is selectively permeable. It is selectively permeable. What it means? You know about the permeability, means which allow the substances to pass through it from one side to another side. Selectively permeable means it allows only certain substances to pass through it by the process called as diffusion. Diffusion. Plasma membrane is selectively permeable, allows only some substances to pass through it by the process called as diffusion. Here diffusion means the movement of the particles from higher concentration to lower concentration. Movement of the particles from higher concentration to lower concentration is called as diffusion. Another method is osmosis. Another method is osmosis, means here also the movement of the only solvent particles, movement of solvent particles from again higher concentration to lower concentration. Okay, what do you think? Higher to lower concentration need energy. ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ದ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಹೈಯರ್ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಷನ್ ಇಂದ ಲೋವರ್ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಷನ್ಗೆ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಎನರ್ಜಿ ಇಸ್ ನೀಡೆಡ್. ನೋ, ಹೆನ್ಸ್ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ದಿಸ್ ಆಸ್ ಪ್ಯಾಸಿವ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟೇಷನ್. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಇದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಪ್ಯಾಸಿವ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ. ಆಸ್ಮೋಸಿಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಡಿಫ್ಯೂಷನ್. ಇನ್ ಕೇಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಡಿಫ್ಯೂಷನ್ all the substances pass from higher to lower concentration. In case of osmosis, only solvent particles move from higher to lower concentration with, here it is also called as with gradient. Gradient means the difference higher ಮತ್ತು lower concentration difference ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಅದೇ difference ಅನ್ನು ನಾವು gradient ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. So movement of substances means diffusion. Only solvent particles means that is osmosis. Okay, this is called as passive transportation. Okay, what about the active transportation? Some of the substances have to move from higher to lower concentration. Here it is okay, selectively permeable membrane. Or ಒಂದೊಂದ್ಸಲ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಲೋವರ್ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಷನ್ ಇಂದ ಹೈಯರ್ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಷನ್ಗೆ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಗೋದು ನಾರ್ಮಲ್, ಮೂಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಆ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ದ sodium and potassium pumps are used to transport the substances from lower to higher concentration. Means this is against the concentration gradient. It is against the concentration gradient. Means ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ಎನರ್ಜಿ is required, ಎನರ್ಜಿ ನಮಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. Means ಈ type of transportation we call as active transportation. Okay, this is all about the plasma membrane. What we have discussed about the plasma membrane, it is the flexible in nature, outermost layer of the animal cell made up of lipid and protein, and it is also called as fluid mosaic model of plasma membrane. And it is most important thing about this is it is selectively permeable in nature, means allows only certain substances to pass through it by active transportation or by passive transportation. But in the case of passive transportation, we have discussed the diffusion and osmosis. Hope you understood about the plasma membrane. So next we start with the cell wall. ಓಕೆ, ನೀವು ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು ನಾವು ಆವಾಗಲೇ ಡ್ರಾ ಮಾಡಿರೋ ಡೈಗ್ರಾಮಲ್ಲಿ ಸೆಲ್ ವಾಲೇ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಅನಿಮಲ್ ಸೆಲ್. ಇನ್ ಕೇಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಸೆಲ್ we will found the cell wall. This is plasma membrane. This is plasma membrane. Outer to the plasma membrane we will find the cell wall, which is rigid in nature, rigid, tough in nature, unlike plasma membrane. Plasma membrane is flexible in nature. The cell wall is rigid and tough in nature. Okay, so this is plasma membrane. This is cell wall. Okay, then what is the function of the cell wall? The cell wall lies outer to the plasma membrane, found only in the plant cell, found only in the plant cell. About the cell wall, it gives definite structure to the cell, definite structure to the cell, act as a barrier, act as barrier, protection, and provide cell to cell connection, cell to cell connection. This is the function of the cell wall, present only in case of animal cell. Okay, next we start with the cell organelles. Cell organelles. So ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಎಂಡೋಮೆಂಬ್ರೇನ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಅಂತ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. Why we call this as a system? So in this case, in the cell we will found the cell organelles with membrane and without membrane too. So with membrane, some of the cell organelles work as a system, integrated system. So that we call or study under the heading endomembrane system. ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಅಂತ ಯಾಕೆ ಹೇಳೋದು? ಇದು ಟುಗೆದರ್ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡೋದು. ಸೊ ಒಂದು ಸಿಸ್ಟಮಲ್ಲಿ ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಇನ್ ಕೇಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಅನಿಮಲ್ಸ್ ಡೈಜೆಸ್ಟಿವ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಸರ್ಕ್ಯುಲೇಟರಿ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ರೆಸ್ಪಿರೇಟರಿ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮೆನಿ ಆರ್ಗನ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಇನ್ವಾಲ್ವ್ಡ್. ಸೊ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ಆ್ಯಸ್ ಅ ಆರ್ಗನ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್. ಸೊ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಫಿಕೇಶನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ಡ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ ಟು ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್. ಓಕೆ, ಹಿಯರ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಎಂಡೋಮೆಂಬ್ರೇನ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್. ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಈಸ್ nucleus, double membrane bound structures, double membrane bound structure inside which is nucleoplasm and nucleolus, nucleolus and some genetic material called as chromatin material. Next is tiny tubular structures, tiny tubular structure scattered within a cytoplasm is called as endoplasmic reticulum. Next to that is endoplasmic reticulum. If the endoplasmic reticulum contains the ribosomes, granular structures on its membrane, this is called as rough endoplasmic reticulum. Rough endoplasmic reticulum involved in the protein synthesis, involved in the protein synthesis. ನಿಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರ್ಬೋದು ರೈಬೋಸೋಮ್ಸ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಪ್ರೋಟೀನ್ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟರೀಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ದ ರೈಬೋಸೋಮ್ಸ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಆನ್ ದ endoplasmic reticulum we call as a rough endoplasmic reticulum involved in the protein synthesis. And the another type of endoplasmic reticulum, smooth endoplasmic reticulum, involved in the lipid or lipid-like steroidal hormone, lipid-like steroidal hormone synthesis. So this is about the endoplasmic reticulum. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೇನು ಸಿಂಥೆಸಿಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಪ್ರೋಟೀನ್ ಸಿಂಥೆಸಿಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಲಿಪಿಡ್ ಸಿಂಥೆಸಿಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ನಾನು ಯಾಕೆ ಇದನ್ನು ಹೇಳ್ತಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಅಂದರೆ, ಸೊ ದೀಸ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್, ದೀಸ್ ಸೆಲ್ ಆರ್ಗನೆಲ್ಸ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸಿಂಗ್ as a system. Nucleus, next to that is endoplasmic reticulum, tiny tubular structures scattered within a cytoplasm. Next to that is, already I have drawn up that Golgi apparatus. The densely stained structures present near the nucleus, densely stained structures present near the nucleus involved in the packaging of substances. This is Golgi apparatus. Golgi apparatus involved in the packaging of substances. Packaging. Okay. So the Golgi apparatus receives the synthesized substances from the endoplasmic reticulum which has two phase. ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಗಾಲ್ಗಿ apparatusಗೆ ಎರಡು ಫೇಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಒಂದು ಕಾನ್ವೆಕ್ಸ್, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಕಾನ್ಕೇವ್ ಫೇಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಇದು ಕಾನ್ಕೇವ್ ಫೇಸ್, ಇದು ಕಾನ್ವೆಕ್ಸ್ ಫೇಸ್. ಕಾನ್ವೆಕ್ಸ್ ಫೇಸಿಂದ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅದು ಎಂಡೋಪ್ಲಾಸ್ಮಿಕ್ ರೆಟಿಕ್ಯುಲಮಿಂದ ಸಿಂಥೆಸಿಸ್ ಆಗಿರುವಂಥ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸನ್ನು ರಿಸೀವ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡಿಫೈ ಮಾಡಿ ಅದನ್ನು ಪ್ಯಾಕ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ದ ವೆಸಿಕಲ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಟು ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮಲ್ಲಿ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಏನು ಬರೋದೀಗ, lysosomes. These are called as lysosomes. So lysosomes are membrane bound. These are lysosomes. Just a minute. Lysosomes, membrane bound vesicles formed during the packaging of Golgi apparatus. Membrane bound vesicles formed during the packaging of Golgi apparatus which contain hydrolytic enzymes, like lipases, amylases, nucleases, etc. Okay, so these lysosomes are also called as suicidal bags. Because these can digest by their hydrolytic enzymes, digest the harmful substances from the cell and digest them by the hydrolytic enzymes, during which the lysosome itself will die. Hence we call these lysosomes as suicidal bags. Hope you understood about this thing. Endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, next one is lysosomes. So last one is in the system, endomembrane system, Last one is vacuole. Last one is vacuole. It is also membrane bound empty space found within a cytoplasm. In case of plant cell, most of the volume of the cell is covered by the vacuole. So vacuole membrane is called as tonoplast. Tonoplast membrane of the vacuole is tonoplast, inside which the excretory products like cell sap and water is present. And in case of vacuole, it acts as against gradient. Against gradient means active transportation which need energy. ಇದು active transportation ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. So this is about the endomembrane system, started from the endoplasmic reticulum, where there is a synthesis of the lipid and the protein are received by the Golgi apparatus, where these have been modified and packed in the vesicles, and vesicles are called as lysosomes, which contain the hydrolytic enzymes. These are also called as suicidal bags, and this endomembrane system ends with a vacuole. It's covered by the membrane called as tonoplast, and it consists of the excretory product, waste product like sap and water inside, act against the gradient, means where energy is needed. This is about the endomembrane system. Hope you understood. Okay, then next we start with the some other cell organelles called as mitochondria. The powerhouse of cell. It is called as powerhouse of cell, where energy is synthesized in the form of adenosine triphosphate. ATP is called as energy currency. Okay, the structure of the mitochondria is, it is a sausage shaped structure. Double membrane bound structure is outer membrane, and inner membrane is infolded inside. Forming a finger-like projection. Inside which there is a matrix. Fluid matrix is called as matrix, and is inner membrane. In between the inner and outer membrane is called as perimitochondrial space. The fluid substance present within a inner membrane is called as matrix, which contain a small DNA, RNA, and it has its own ribosomes. Hence, this mitochondria is called as semi-autonomous cell organelle. Semi-autonomous cell organelle. Okay, it contains the ribosomes. It has its own DNA, not dependent on the cell. So, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಇದನ್ನು ನಾವು semi-autonomous cell organelle ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. So, ribosome in this case is 70S type. I will discuss about the ribosomes later. Okay, this is all about the mitochondria, powerhouse of cell. Why we call this as a powerhouse? Because it produces energy in the form of energy synthesized within the mitochondria in the form of adenosine triphosphate. It is double membrane bound structure, outer membrane and inner membrane. In the space in between the outer and inner membrane is called as perimitochondrial space. The fluid substance present within the inner membrane is called as matrix, and it has its own DNA and ribosomes, DNA, RNA and ribosomes. Hence it is also called as semi-autonomous cell organelle. Understood? So next one is plastids. Next one is plastid. Present only in plant cell. Present only in the plant cell. There are three types of plastids. Chloroplast, chloroplast contain the green pigment chlorophyll and carotenoid. Chlorophyll and carotenoid. Second is chromoplast. Second is chromoplast contain fat soluble pigments like carotenoid and xanthophyll Okay, chloroplast is green pigment, carotenoid is orange and xanthophyll is yellow pigment. Okay, this is second type. Then third one is leucoplast. Third one is leucoplast, colorless. Colorless, or in some book they have given white. These help to store. There are again three types. First one is aleuroplast. Aleuroplast help in the storage of protein. Second is amyloplast. Amyloplast, carbohydrates. Carbohydrates. Then elaioplast. Help to store oil or lipid substances. This is about the plastid, present only in case of plant cell. Okay, so let us study the structure of the chloroplast. Where do you find the chloroplast? So if this is a leaf, this is a leaf. If you take the section of the leaf, you will find the outer epidermis, upper epidermis and lower epidermis. Then from here to here it is mesophyll tissue. So this is lower epidermis. This is upper epidermis. Okay, in between upper and lower epidermis you will find the mesophyll tissue made up of parenchyma, palisade parenchyma and spongy parenchyma in case of dicot leaf, but in case of monocot leaf you will find only the spongy parenchyma. All the parenchymatous cells present within the mesophyll tissue contain the chloroplast parallel to their membrane. Contain the chloroplast parallel to their membrane. So let us study the in detail structure of the chloroplast. Okay, so this is the structure of the chloroplast. It is also double membrane bound cell organelle present only in the plant cell. Outer membrane, this is inner membrane. In between these two periplastidial space or intermembranous space. Periplastidial. Okay, next. The fluid matrix present in the chloroplast is called as stroma. Is called as stroma, and some coin-like structures you will find within a stroma are thylakoids. Coin-like structures within stroma are called as thylakoids. Okay, so these are thylakoids. These thylakoids placed one above the other form the stack of thylakoids or stack of coin-like structure called as granum. Called as granum. These granum are interconnected by stroma lamellae or fret lamellae. This is stroma lamellae. Then this is about the chloroplast. Like mitochondria, this chloroplast also contain its own DNA and ribosomes. This is DNA and these are ribosomes. So, because of the presence of the DNA and ribosome, we called the mitochondria as semi-autonomous cell organelle. Here, this chloroplast, in case of plant cell, it is also called as semi-autonomous cell organelle. It is independent of the cell. Hope you understood. Okay, this is also double membrane bound structure, outer membrane, inner membrane, in between two membrane, periplastidial space or intermembranous space. The fluid substance present within a chloroplast is called as stroma. The coin-like structures present in the stroma are called as thylakoids. If the thylakoids placed one above the other form the stack of thylakoids called as granum. Granum are interconnected by the fret lamellae or stroma lamellae, and it has its own DNA and ribosomes, because of which it is also called as semi-autonomous cell organelle. Is that clear? Okay, then next. So we have here discussed about the cell organelle, what were the endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, the lysosomes, vacuole, the plastids, mitochondria. So next one is ribosome. Okay, next one is ribosome. Ribosomes made up of protein and RNA. Okay, so found as two types in case of prokaryotic cell. In case of prokaryotic cell, the ribosome is 70S type. S means sedimentation coefficient, density gradient, Swedberg unit antanu heltare. Based on the density, there are two types of ribosomes, 70S, and in case of eukaryotic cell, okay, 80S type of ribosome made up of two subunits. Okay, this is about the ribosome and not membrane bound. It is not covered by the any kind of membrane. Okay. Then non-membrane bound cell organelles is first one ribosome, non-membrane bound alli first one ribosome, then second is centrioles, then third one is nucleolus. So these are non-membrane bound structures, cell organelles in case of plant and animal cell. Okay, is this clear? Okay, then next one is we last the cell organelle is the brain of the cell is nucleus. Brain of the cell is nucleus, double membrane bound cell organelle. So there is a gap in the outer membrane called as nuclear pore, and it contains the nucleolus made up of RNA involved in the RNA synthesis, and the fluid present in the nucleus is nucleoplasm, within which you will find the genetic material DNA and RNA, chromatin material. ಇದನ್ನು ನಾವೇನು ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ chromatin material. This is chromatin network or chromatin material. Later on condensation, it become the chromosomes. It will become chromosome. This is called as nucleolus. The fluid substance present within the inner membrane is called as nucleoplasm. Okay. Later on condensation, this chromatin material itself become the chromosomes. On condensation. Okay, is that clear? So let us discuss about the chromosome. Okay. This is the centromere part to which the chromatids attach. This is centromere. Chromosomal arms called as chromatids. And at the centromere, there is a covering called as kinetochore. The chromatin material found within a nucleus, later on condensation, these only form the chromosomes. Here you will find the DNA, highly coiled DNA. This is about the chromosome involved in the cell division. Is that clear? Okay, this completes the chapter cell, the unit of life, where we have covered the definition of the cell. Definition is structural and functional unit of living organism. Why structure? So it forms the structure of the whole organism. If the organism is composed of the single cell called as unicellular, many cell called as multicellular. Cells together they form a tissues together they form a organ does the specific function, hence the cell is also defined as functional unit of living organism. Later we have discussed about the discoveries of the cell. I am giving a summary of the whole chapter. Okay, discuss about the discoveries of the cell, where we have discussed the first cell is discovered by the Robert Hooke. Dead cell, it was dead cell, and first living cell is discovered by Antony van Leeuwenhoek, and the nucleus is discovered by Robert Brown. Protoplasm is discovered by Purkinje. Okay, the plasma membrane is discovered by Singer and Nicholson. Later we have discussed about the cell theory which is given by the Sheldon and Swan. Sheldon is a botanist. He given his statement about the cell is all living organisms. I mean all plants are composed of the cell, and Swan given his statement as all animals are composed of the cell. Later, the scientist called as Rudolf Virchow modified the cell theory and given a statement as all living organisms are composed of the cells. And second statement is the cells are formed by its pre-existing cells. Cells produce new cells produced by its pre-existing cell, which was a statement of the cell theory given by the Rudolf Virchow. He called this statement as omnis cellula e cellula. Omnis cellula e cellula means all new cells produced by its pre-existing cell. This is about the cell theory. Later we have discussed about the type of the cell, prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell, and structure of the cell, the number, size and the shape of the cell. In the structure, the plant cell and animal cell, the difference you have to write about that. It is your homework. The difference between the plant cell and animal cell, difference between the prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell. This is for your homework. And next one is the plasma membrane, the outermost layer of the animal cell, outermost layer of the animal cell made up of lipid bilayer made up of protein and the lipid. It is flexible in nature, selectively permeable. Why selectively permeable? It allows only certain substances to pass through it. So, by the process called as diffusion, where the substances move from higher to lower concentration, and by the osmosis, where the solvent molecules move from higher to lower concentration. These two are the type of transportation where energy is not needed, because higher to lower concentration the substances are moving. If the cell has to pass the substances from lower to higher concentration, it has to move against gradient where the proton and potassium pumps are used. Okay, then plasma membrane. Next one is cell wall. Cell wall present only in the plant cell outer to the plasma membrane, which is very rigid and tough in nature, made up of cellulose in case of plant cell. In case of fungus, animal cell, in case of fungus it is made up of pectic substances, chitin substances. In case of fungi, these are made up of chitin. Then cell wall, the function of the cell wall is it acts as a barrier, it gives the definite shape to the cell, and it provides the interconnection between the neighbor cells. Okay, and one of the very important function of the cell wall is protection. Okay, then next is we have discussed some membrane bound structures which act in a endomembrane system. First is endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, these are tiny tubular structures present or scattered within the cytoplasm. Okay, if the endoplasmic reticulum contain the ribosome, the granular structures on its surface called as rough endoplasmic reticulum. If the ribosome is absent, called as smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Rough endoplasmic reticulum involved in the synthesis of the protein, smooth endoplasmic reticulum involved in the synthesis of the lipid and lipid-like steroidal substances. Okay, so these produced substances are received by the Golgi apparatus. These are the densely stained reticular structures found near the nucleus, and the sac-like structures present parallelly are called as cisternae. And the Golgi apparatus involved in the packaging and modification of the substances received by the endoplasmic reticulum. Then next is lysosomes. Lysosomes are the membrane bound structures formed during the packaging of the Golgi apparatus, where the lysosomes contain the powerful hydrolytic enzymes like lipases, nucleases, amylases. Okay, so it is also called as suicidal bag of the cell because it will digest the harmful substances in the cell. So next is vacuole. The most of the volume of the cell in case of plant is covered by the vacuole. It is also membrane bound empty space in the cell in the cytoplasm is called as vacuole. The membrane of the vacuole is called as tonoplast. It stores the waste substances present in the cell and it acts as against the gradient, means by active transportation the substances move from in to out or out to in. Okay, then this is about the endomembrane system. Later we have discussed about the chloroplast and mitochondria, where we discussed about why these are called as semi-autonomous cell organelle, double membrane bound structures, ribosomes and nucleus also. If you have any doubt, you can comment in the section. Thank you.